Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Council Code, a podcast series by Volody. My name is 𝐵𝐿𝐴. I'm VP Sales at Volody and your host for this today's conversation. At Volody, we have been transforming the legal landscape since 2016 with cutting-edge solutions in contract lifecycle management, litigation management, and insider trading compliances. Our mission is to empower the legal team with the technology that drives efficiency, accuracy, and compliance. This podcast is designed to provide a valuable insight to the legal community through conversations with the top legal experts. We'll explore their professional journeys, key learning, challenges, strategies, and perspective to gain a deeper understanding of the evolving legal world. After all, it's not just about the law, it's about the stories behind it. Let's get started. Today we have Amit Pandey with us. Welcome, Amit ji, to the podcast.
Thank you, Milind ji.
Yeah. Amit ji is an experienced general counsel with over 20 plus years of experience working in diversified sectors across the globe. He is currently working as the EVP and General Counsel at GSK. In past roles, he has worked as Director Legal at Honeywell Automation, Legal Counsel and Company Secretary at GE Healthcare, Legal Counsel and Company Secretary at GE Research, General Manager and Company Secretary at Fakar Steel, and Company Secretary at Practicing CS. Amit ji is skilled in legal affairs, negotiation, legal management, regulatory compliance, and mergers and acquisitions. He has strong administration professions focused in international law and corporate advisory experience with Indian and multinational organizations. Amit ji, thank you very much for joining us today. We are excited about this conversation and can't wait to dive in.
Thank you, Milind ji. It's an absolute privilege to be part of this podcast.
All right.
First and foremost, wish you and every viewers of this podcast a very happy New Year 2026. Thanks for that lovely introduction and looking forward for our interaction.
So Amit ji, my first question is a usual question. So what inspired you to pursue a career in law and what vision for the future of the profession drives you today?
Oh, that's an interesting one. So, I started my career and at those times in early 90s, the law as a profession in the corporates in particular was more of a role which was more of an advisory kind of work. Right? So I did my BCom first and then was clueless about my career, and then one of my friends, elder brother, was doing chartered accountancy, inspired me to get into the corporate secretarial, company secretarial course. And I was completing my company secretarial course. One of the fascinating aspects of the law which came across was the Keshavanand Bharati case. If you remember the basic structure of the constitution which was defined in that case. And that particular case, when I read, really gave me a deeper insight on how law really influences the life of an individual. And that was a turning point in my career where I thought that beyond the remit of the corporate laws, I should also look at the general law, which is called the legislative law.
Okay.
And I enrolled myself into the LLB course, which was a 3 years course at that point of time. And along with my CS, I thought it will complement the CS as well as company secretary as well as the legislative law. And I completed both my LLB and company secretaryship course in 2001. So that was a point where I thought that this is the path that I want to take. Further, I would like to tell that I come from a family where my father was in a government service and some of our relatives were in a government service. So I've been exposed to the rule of law quite early in my life. And I could see that from a close corners as to how the rule of law really made the difference in life of people. And the fact that judgments of the court could really change the course of life of people and protect people and guide organizations was a really compelling kind of motivation for me to look at law as a career, and that's how I landed up in this field.
All right. So thank you, Amit ji, for the brief about your journey. I mean about your career's beginning, and you have holding basically a dual qualification as well, right? That's interesting. So Amit ji, can you brief us basically about the overview of your journey and how you have been seeing the legal landscape shift since you have started?
Yeah, that's an interesting journey, Milind ji. So I started in practice with one of my mentors who's no more Dr. 𝐕𝐭 Jain. And I started as a corporate secretary, advising on tax matters, as well as looking at some of the company secretarial work, as well as some legal work at that point of time. And then easily I realized that my skill doesn't lies in recovering the amount that is to be recoverable from the clients.
Okay.
And after a couple of years, I was also pursuing my UPSC exams at that point of time. So
interesting.
I probably couldn't crack that, but I realized that it's very difficult probably to get the money recovered from the clients unless they are in distress, and asking for money at a distressed is not the right ethical approach that one would take. So there was an opportunity with one of the companies which got recently demerged into 3 different companies called 𝐀𝐟𝐭. And one of my seniors introduced me to that group and asked me whether I would be interested in looking at their portfolio. And that's how I joined. After 3-4 years of my practice, I joined Frontlines Corporation and had an opportunity to set up a complete secretarial department as well as legal department. So that was quite a challenging task. And the company had just come out of demerger, so there was a balancing act required to manage the expectation of the organization as well as to ensure that legally everything is done properly. So that was a good start. Fortunately for me, the company was very ethical. So initially I thought that how the corporate world looked like, gain some experience, come back to practice again. But as it had, the rigor of the corporates really got me in. And there were challenges which came up. There were many expansions that happened. It was a mini steel plant which was integrated as part of the group, and it was also a listed entity. So I had an exposure of Bombay Stock Exchange as well as SEBI laws, and it was quite a good experience. And I developed a legal function there. And eventually it happened that I ended up almost spending a decade there. In which I saw the full circle of the corporate life from a company which is emerging out of a demerger, going again back into a situation where the steel industry got deeply impacted on account of subprime crisis in 2008 that happened in the United States. And it slowed down the economy across the globe. And as a result, the promoter decided to close down the operations of the factory. And I was part of the entire process where the VRS was designed for the employees. There was 1,000 people working in the organization. So quite a good experience in terms of how the corporate debt restructuring happens. The BIFR, which was earlier a board for industrial finance and reconstruction, a lot of exposure on that. Eventually, the BIFR came to closure in 2013, and then the NCLAT came in. So by that time, probably when I left the organization, I was the last 15th employee of the organization who was leaving the organization at that point in time. So I had an option to kind of relook at my career at that point of time, whether to come back to the practicing side or to expand my experience in a corporate area. So that's where GE came in. And GE is a multinational, as you know. So I took up that opportunity and went to Bangalore in the research center. And for I worked for 1.5 years there, and then I got promoted and got into the joint venture which was between Wipro and GE in the GE Healthcare space, which was into medical devices. There had an opportunity to interact with a very high-profile board comprising of the senior executives of Wipro as well as the senior executive of GE Healthcare, including Mr. Premji and Mr. Richard Premji, Mr. Suresh Senapati. Quite a glorifying and quite a impactful as well as high-profile board. And a lot of learnings from those experiences of managing high stakeholders, understanding how the business really operates. That brought me to Honeywell after 5 years, and I think Honeywell truly was a very enriching experience because Honeywell is a conglomerate working into aerospace, working into oil and gas, working into the protective equipments. And during those time it was COVID, so I could really see the way in which the organization evolves during a COVID time, working remotely and then supporting the community through those masks which used to be made, N95 masks, right? And as the luck would have it, I think it aligned with my bigger purpose, and I got a call from GlaxoSmithKline, which is into medical, almost 100 years old company. And that's how I landed up in Mumbai in 2022, early 2022, February 2022. And over the last 25 years of my journey, it's been quite an enriching experience. GE gave me an experience to work on cross-border mergers, acquisitions when they acquired Ariston. I couldn't be part of that. And then Honeywell, I had an opportunity to work into some other acquisitions which was lined up. And now I think I'm privileged to be part of GlaxoSmithKline, which is one of the leading pharmaceutical global companies, and which at the time when I joined, demerged its business into consumer division as well as became pure biopharma company. And there is a renewed purpose of serving almost like 2.4 billion people in the world across. And it is a privilege to be part of that and ensuring that things are done the right way in this organization. And as a legal function, we work as an enabler for the organization to move ahead in its purpose of being ambitious for its patients and accountable for impact and doing the right thing as we have our culture pillars. So it's quite an interesting journey. So this has been my journey so far.
Yeah, it's very interesting and quite diversified role you have played actually so far in your career span. You must be encountering various compliances to be adhered to, right? Because being a pharmaceutical company, of course, you have a lot of compliances also. So do you want to share something about related to your experience related to compliances? How did you manage that? And how do you see basically the technology is playing a role actually into these managing the compliance across the globe?
Yeah, no, I think we've come a long way in terms of how we manage compliances. Initially, when I started, I think it was more paper driven, although the computers had come in at that point of time, but it was not leveraged to an extent that everything got automated. And now it is more automated. Now it is more event based. It has automatic reminders to keep the stakeholders updated in terms of what are the things that they need to close. It has an escalation mechanism whereby if somebody is not doing a job, automatically within time it gets escalated to his or her manager, and that gets attended to. The fact that the SEBI has also put in a lot of responsibilities on the board, and one of the responsibilities of the board of directors is to also give confirmation and have an overview of the system that ensures that all the applicable laws and rule regulations for an entity is properly complied with. So a dashboard kind of gets presented to the board, which gives a complete overview of how the compliances of the organizations in terms of what we call a RAG status, which is color coding to say whether we are compliant is green, whether we are preparing in yellow, and whether we are non-compliant in red. So that really gives a snapshot of the status of the organization. So we've come a long way. I don't, as of in my current role, I am not responsible for compliance, but I do have a advisory role to play in terms of advising the businesses in for the manner in which those compliances are principally to be addressed. So there is two parts to it. One is the governance part of it, the compliance part of it, which relates more to the documentation part of it. And the other is the principal approach as to what is the law intends by that compliance, and are we really following that? So it's more of the spirit of the law that I take care of, rather than the letter of the law, which gets executed by the compliance team, which does that.
Absolutely. Thanks for this. And we have seen basically, I mean, you have been experiences actually how basically the general counsel role has been evolving actually over a period of time. There are a lot of changes, as you said. Basically, we started with the paperwork. Now the technology is actually in the picture. So how do you see that the role of general counsel and legal department has evolved, and how it's going to evolve actually over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think very interesting question, because the role of the general counsel, when I started my career, was more of a legal advisor. And I think over a period of time, it has become a strategic partner. But there's a difference between a legal advisor and a strategic partner. I think the current role of a general counsel is more managerial, is more of a management, is more of a trusted business partner. It's more of a person who uses judgment calibration to guide the business in an ethical and moral and as well as legal way. right? Which is completely different than what it used to be earlier, where the general counsel was more of an advisor as to how the law sees a particular activity, and probably stop at that, giving his or her advice in terms of whether this is doable or not doable. So, relativity perspective, the questions have evolved from can it be done to how it is being done. And that's how I would probably shape the role of a general counsel. Is earlier the general counsel was more asked the question, can it be done? And now the question is how it can be done, right? So the how part of it is very interesting piece, which has evolved over a period of time. And that has made it more to be an enabling function rather than a support function. Because when you are an enabling function, probably you are part of the journey of the growth of the organization, and you're doing many things silently, which is benefiting the organization, then rather working as a gatekeeper or a risk mitigator, who is more focused on managing the risk for the organization. So that's how I would probably define it.
Absolutely correct, sir. Actually, I mean, we have always seen basically no more a reactive job. It's a proactive partnership, as you rightly said. And basically, we have to blend yourself, actually, and in fact, your team as well, actually, to the organization objective, how you can achieve that. And there are various strategies we can bring it to the table, basically, so that we can enable the organization to achieve its objective. So in such a situation, we have seen basically a lot of change actually over a period of time happen in terms of the technology, right? So how do you see basically, because AI is coming in a big way, and how do you see the AI basically playing a role actually and in your current processes, and how do you see that it has an impact actually on the automation of legal sector?
This is probably a watershed moment, not only for legal function, but industry altogether, because the advent of AI and generative AI in particular is going to redefine the way business operates in the next decade or so. And we are seeing every day we hear some of the other technological revolution which impacts the way people live life, their daily stuff, as well as the businesses. And legal function will not be isolated from it. I think the way I look at the legal function is we will have counsels who are either trained with AI, who know how to use AI, or there would be counsel who don't know AI. So those counsels who don't know AI probably will not have a future ahead. One who have embraced AI and who have embraced technology probably will turn out to be a better counsel. So no matter how much of an AI you use, you will never be able to replace it with a judgment calibration, which is an important part of a in-house counsel. And AI can enable you to get away with your mundane work. So there are many work that a lawyer has to do in-house, which are very repetitive in nature, including a contract management or a contract drafting. But what is not replaceable is the judgment of the lawyer to really understand, forecast and mitigate risks. Which is going to be the core point on which lawyers will need to focus now. Which would mean a lot of experience would be required to take decisions, and that experience will be combination of your understanding of tech, your understanding of management, your understanding of business, and how closely you are involved in the business operations, and also culmination of the softer skills that you would develop. Those softer skills would be communication, those softer skills would be collaboration, those softer skills will be how do you frame a question, because it's an era where it's an interesting era, because we come from an era where we were trained to give answers, and probably this is an era where everybody is getting trained to ask questions, because AI will give you an answer, but how do you frame a question to an AI will determine what quality of answers comes back. So the amount of energy that previous lawyers used to put on case laws, study, and kind of understand a particular environment in which those decisions were given is now readily available on a click of a button. But how to use that and how to contextualize that particular case law to your benefit, to your business, and de-risk that is something lawyers will have to learn. So I think those aspects are not being taught in law schools at present, and I think those aspects are gained only by experience. I think that will shape the future of the legal function as we move ahead. And AI is irreplaceable as I see it. it is going to penetrate in every aspect of everybody's life.
Okay.
It's like, to give an analogy, I would say that how many of us remember now the phone numbers of our friends and colleagues? We remember their names. We don't remember their phone numbers, right?
Correct.
But if you go back 30 years, people used to remember 30, 40 phone numbers of their relatives, friends, whom they used to dial, right? Now, whether it is good or bad is a debatable stuff, but that's how things will evolve. And nobody would need to spend hours drafting a contract. It will be generated in seconds. Probably where they need to focus on is the crux of that contract, where the meeting of mind really happens and the purpose for which the contract is being executed is properly defined. So, and that would come only with the right understanding of the technology, the right understanding of the use of the AI, and the right utilization of the time, and being more impactful. So quality will drive quantity is what I see.
Correct, sir. I mean, absolutely correctly. Actually, I just want to infer from your conversation, from your reply, is that AI won't be basically replacing the human being, and they will be an assistant actually to the lawyers. But AI would not be able to give the legal advice, right? Is that correct?
So technically, if you give a legal advice, now you take an advice from a law firm also, there are a lot of disclaimers below that it is an advice based on information provided to us, based on the situation.
Correct.
It's not to be used for anyone. There's a lot of disclaimers which come.
Right.
But why do you depend on an advice of a legal counsel? Is because of the experience that the person brings it. Because it will test the waters when it is put to test before the court.
Correct.
Can you imagine artificial intelligence being tested before the court to really validate the fact that whatever advice is coming from an AI can hold ground in water? Few people have tried that, and the courts have kind of dismissed it. So the human aspect of it will never go away. It will always be human who will stand behind it, because there always has to be a face behind an opinion or an advice that is given.
Correct.
But whether that is calibrated, whether that is properly evaluated, is something that the lawyer giving an advice has to see. So an AI will never be able to give a legal advice. It's like an AI will never be able to do an operation. A doctor will always be there.
Yeah.
Similarly, a lawyer will always be there whenever advice is to be taken. The ability to give an advice would become much faster, because you will now need to look at the advice which has been given by AI, validate that, proofread that, whether it is correct or not. And then based on your experience, you can probably, substitute that advice or endorse that advice which has come out of the AI to say that it is the right perspective in which the advice has come. But ultimately, it will be deemed to be an individual's advice and not of the machine which is giving that advice.
Absolutely, sir. Correct, actually. So human in loop is basically going to be the essential thing currently. We don't know future how it's going to span out, whether AI will give us legal advice or don't know. It's again depend on how the AI is getting trained actually to each of these locally laws actually, and then he can come up actually with the legal advice. But of course, human in loop basically will not go away.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, 𝐿𝐿. I just want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
As AI comes in, where do you take a legal advice? You take a legal advice where you have an ambiguity in certain aspect of it, and there is no. When it is black and white, you don't need a legal advice. You know what is black and what is white. It's a gray area of gray that you need a legal advice. With AI coming in, there will be far more areas which will get into a black and white area and not on the gray area. Right? So the need of legal advice will now get concentrated on few things which has not been decided, which has not been able to determine, and it is dependent on the situation. For example, to give you a simple example, you should not jump the red signal when the signal is asking you to stop. But if you are in a medical emergency, that doesn't apply to you.
Correct.
If you are in a personal emergency, even then it doesn't apply to you. It is contextual, right? How you present your case is always dependent on, there's a gray area. It's not a black and white area. What AI will now do is probably make everybody well aware of the consequences of a defaulted law, which earlier people, because of ignorance or because of the fact that they were not putting an effort to understand what would be the consequences, AI probably can give them a better overview of it upfront, so that they don't venture into that side of the area, right?
Correct.
And the need for a legal opinion on particular matter will only remain on a quality basis and not on quantity basis. And so that means the number of cases that land up in the courts probably would also reduce significantly, because now people know the consequence of doing something which is legally, ethically, morally wrong. But whether the AI would be able to morally or ethically give you that view, I think it is debatable. Only the human aspect of it will give you a moral and ethical view. And it evolves over a period of time. It is not constant. It's not abstract. It evolves over a period of time. So I think we'll have to wait and see how this entire landscape evolves, and then only we'll be able to decide how it will impact. But the game is changing. The players of the games will change for sure. And you will have to be agile enough to adapt to the new way of playing the game. It's like from a test cricket, you're coming to a 2020. Yeah, so you'll have to adapt to it. There's no other choice.
Absolutely correct. So rightly said, sir, actually. And how the technology, since the technology is evolving, actually, how do you align your and your legal department with changing or maybe the future focused business goals?
So there is no other substitute than putting everyone going through the famous quote that we have is learn, unlearn, and relearn. First, start learning. There is no substitute to making yourself aware with the knowledge of artificial intelligence.
Correct.
So you have to start learning it, and you can learn best when you start use it. So organizations have already have their. So one of the biggest aspects of AI is the data, because you have the data flows and goes into the open source, and which gets utilized and somebody can misuse it. That's the biggest risk. So most of the organizations have started having their own AI platforms built, which keeps the data within the organization.
Right.
But that has enabled the organization to give access to their employees, including legal department, for starting using the AI for various queries that get generated. So you are learning in that fashion. You have to unlearn the old ways of working. You cannot be wasting your time. You have to have the correlation between time and the output. When something can be achievable in an hour, you can't have a day's time for it. Right?
Correct.
So your turnaround time will get redefined.
Correct.
And that can only happen when you start using the AI which is at your disposal. So
Absolutely.
unlearn the old ways of working and relearn. Start relearning the new ways of working, right? The new ways and redefining the new ways of working as to how you would approach a particular problem which is part of the organization to solve it. So while the AI will give you an answer, you will have to invest significant portion of your time validating the output of the AI to ensure that it is in compliance with the law of the land, right? Because AI will pick up many things from the world, external as well as internal, and curate something, putting its own mind, may not be relatable to you. So you will have to start looking at it, and that's where the unlearning of the old ways and relearning of the new ways comes into play. So those are the things that everybody has to start, and I think most of the advanced companies who have figured out this have already started doing that. Microsoft Copilot licenses are there almost. Perplexity licenses are being used by most of the organization. So this is just to make everybody sensitized about how the AI will come. And I think we see CLM tools also being used across the industry. So more and more, earlier there used to be a lot of lawyers doing only contract work. I think those jobs have become redundant now. It is more of an advisory work now. So this is the transition that is imminent, and we will have to be supportive of this change. There's no other way.
Absolutely. That's a great insight, sir. So we'll move to the next section where we have the rapid fire questions. Okay. I have some few questions which we'll be asking to you. Just give the answer actually maybe in a word actually. Okay. And what comes in your mind first. What's your favorite legal term or phrase?
It was without prejudice earlier, but I think now as a GC, it's more of a risk management.
Okay, all right. What's the biggest myth about being an in-house lawyer?
Biggest myth is that in-house lawyers are the blockers, which is not the case. They are the enablers. They are the risk mitigators.
What's the one skill lawyer need that isn't taught in the law school?
I think judgment calibration is not taught in the law school. The understanding of the business, I think that is something that only experiences with experience you get.
Mm-hmm.
But lawyers, in-house lawyers, are valued for their judgment,
Okay.
and not for cleaning the mess which happens subsequently.
Correct. What's the most value a lawyer should have?
What the most
Important value a lawyer should have.
I think integrity. You
Okay.
can't substitute that. I
Mhm,
mean, the integrity to be able to advise, counsel your stakeholders, and your stakeholders are multiple. It's just not
Okay.
one. One hand you are advising an employee, and you're advising the management, and probably both of them are at loggerhead with each other. But your integrity to be able to transparently advise each one of them in a rightful manner, in a legal manner, that has to be the biggest quality, and not allow that to become a grapevine in the organization is equally important. So integrity is the key aspect.
Okay. What's the most misunderstood aspect of the legal profession?
The most misunderstood aspect of a legal profession are lawyers are risk mitigators, but probably I would say that lawyers are strategic partners.
Mm-hmm.
They are not there to say no, but probably save the hard-earned money that business brings in, not to be ruined to some stupid actions that are not compliant with the law. So I think that would be my answer to it.
What's your biggest challenge as a general counsel?
My biggest challenge as a general counsel, that's a very important. As a general counsel, it's always we are endeavoring to, generate a sense of trust with our stakeholders, right? The trust in ability to kind of guide them to a right, legal, ethical, and compliant manner.
Mhm.
So I think the biggest challenge is to retain that trust of our stakeholders.
Okay, all right. And how do you approach work-life balance as a legal profession?
I think I very start of my career, I read a book by 𝐤𝐭'𝐬,
Mhm.
and it gave me a 90-10 principle.
Okay.
So I try to apply that in my work as well. The 90% of the things are under your control, it says, and 10% are not under your control. It's
Mhm.
something. Don't worry about that 10%. Focus on that 90%.
Correct. Okay.
So
great.
I think for work-life balance, I focus on my work when I'm at work, with that 90% which is there, which is controllable.
Okay.
Don't worry about the uncontrollable. I think most of us think too much about the uncontrollable than probably the controllable aspect. And don't bring the work back home. Be at the moment is what normally I try to practice.
How do you foster collaboration with non-legal teams?
See, all non-legal team would have no interest in understanding legal jargons. So first and foremost, you have to simplify your language and communication. You have to come at their level. And to collaborate, you have to understand their pain points. Once you understand their pain points and focus on how part of it rather than can part of it, I think mostly you will be able to collaborate with them. So if you can understand how it can be solved, if you can work with them, I think mostly the collaboration happens.
Okay. What's your tip for improving the negotiation skills?
Again, what is it in for the other party? If you understand that, then probably you can better negotiate.
Okay.
Many a times during negotiation, both the parties don't understand. The meeting of minds is not there. The
Right.
discussion is there, but the meeting of minds is not there. What is it in for the other party that is driving this negotiation is very key. Once you get that, I think you are in a better position to align with your objective and you get that.
Okay. What's your success mantra?
I think very difficult question, because I don't consider myself as too successful. I think I'm just contributing for a business to be successful. As long as you're thinking about making others successful, you would succeed. And I think that's the key of being an enabler.
Okay.
You always have to think about others' success, your organizational success, your colleagues' success. Think about creating more leaders for the organizations. Once you do that, success for you would come automatically. I think that's how I look at it.
All right. So my last question to you, sir, basically, what's your advice to the aspiring lawyers or law students on how future-proof their careers?
See, it's a very interesting one, because I don't know whether I'll be the right person to advise them. But if I have to share my experience, the need of the industry is changing. Industry now needs a hybrid lawyer. They don't just need a lawyer who gives them an answer legally whether it is doable or not doable. They need a lawyer who has a good communication, is astute in communication, who understand AI technology well, understands business well, has the soft skill of being able to communicate his or her problem statement in a way which is relatable and easy to understand, and has the patience to listen to the business priorities as well as problem statements.
Correct.
So I think young lawyers are always enthusiastic, and in their enthusiasm of having learned law, they always want to enforce that learning quickly in the business.
Correct.
Probably the ability to listen more, to learn from experience, the ability to have that curiosity to kind of look into the new tools which are coming to make their life easier and as well as the business life easier, is something that I feel the new lawyers should look at. And it depends which part of the career you are going in. Are you going into litigation? Are you coming in-house? I'm talking more from an in-house perspective, because I'm a general counsel looking at in-house lawyers. So when you're an in-house lawyer, you have to understand business closely. You have to understand the pain points of business. You have to understand the legality of the business, where there can be pitfalls, where there can be risk, where there can be a no-go area, where there can be some kind of perceived risks, whether the timing of your decision is right, whether the perception that you're creating about your decision is right, whether the proportionality at which your decision is being done is right. So all those aspects are something that would make a lawyer more of a strategic business partner. So the skill set is beyond law.
Okay.
The one thing that I would urge all lawyers is to learn things beyond law.
Okay.
If you start learn things beyond law and be able to embed the law and the things that you have learned together and start giving solutions out of that, the impact would be significantly higher.
Absolutely right, sir. So thank you, Amit ji, so much for sharing your insights with us today. Is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap up?
Well, thank you very much, 𝐻𝐿, for giving this opportunity to share my thoughts. I think
Welcome.
I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Okay.
I mean, I lost track of time. I think we've spent significant amount of time having this discussion, but it's an interesting discussion. I could reflect back on my journey. Thanks for giving me that opportunity to kind of have a reflection back. It's the start of the year, so year always you reflect back on how the years have gone by. But I didn't think I would have to go back 25 years down the line of my career and look at how it has shaped over a period of time. But I think the one message that I would take is the continuous learning aspect of it.
Correct.
As a professionals, we continue to learn and contribute in the best possible way. So do the best that you can to give to the profession, as well as continue to learn new things and interact with people. So thanks for this opportunity to get to know you guys and to get to know the great work that you are doing through this podcast. I hope this session would inspire others as well to look at law as a profession. And wish all of you the best.
Thank you very much, Amit ji. Thank you very much.
Thank you.